Well, this is a large band. I'll do the intro from the floor. It's so good to see all of you all to our first Whitaker Jazz Series here at the club. My name is Darren Jackson. I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement, and I am so happy to be here to welcome all of you all to the club. You can give yourselves a hand. So first of all, I want to shout out, do a special thanks to the folks, to the people at the Whitaker Foundation that enable us. Yeah, give them a hand. That enable us to be able to present this amazing music, this amazing group, this amazing event tonight at no cost to you all. I had an amen over here. That's what I'm talking about. We love being able to partner with them and offer this kind of thing to the community. So this is our first Whitaker of the year, and I just want to talk about last year a little bit. When I was asked to put together ideas for what we would present this year, I looked to the community for help, right? You know, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to do. And one of the things that came up after talking to people was something that had to do with how Latin jazz is this large term that's meant to encompass all the things, right? And that's not exactly what it is. And to say that and to operate in that is to do that and not be sensitive to the cultures and the things that are happening and going on within that, so that we can present something on stage, and when we talk about it, we're informed, right? Would you like to be informed when you talk about this music?
Yes, sir.
More than entertained, would you like to be informed when we talk about this music? And so that is the purpose of these Whitaker series, so that we learn something about the music. Because when the music stops, this art form is what we know that keeps the conversation going, right? And we want to be able to talk to each other, and we want to be able to educate one another, and we want to be able to experience it, this music, all music, you know, on an elevated place, right? The world is such a bottom, waist down place, right? We want to make it waist up in terms of what we know, in terms of what we can share. So with that, our first Whitaker Jazz Series is all about the miseducation of Latin music. And so you will be better educated when you leave here. You will be properly informed. And with that, the guys are assembled, and Dawn Weber. I call her out because she is one of our teaching artists here at Jazz St. Louis. So we have members of the United States Air Force that are in the band tonight. As well as St. Louis-made artists who've graced the stage and who've played all over the world. This Whitaker is led by Dr. Andres Espinoza. Give him a hand, please. He's from Florida Atlantic University. He's doing this with the assistance of Matt Henry, who's Director of Percussion at the University of Missouri St. Louis, and the Agbara Ensemble. So, gentlemen, please take it away.
Dara babalaroye, oko kan ogdara. Echo la guana babalaroye, dide orisa kamayeo. Moyuba orisa, moyuba orisa ache babaile bara. Agoile, akotoile, eleguala topade. Ago ile agoya. Ago korio maleka wabolele. Ago korio kawa pumiye. Iyan soro ungotongo molo o sibio bolele. lepa bara lo yulo ago ele guara echu chewele bara go chewele lona echu chewele. Kenya irawo o bara suayo omonia la guana koma ma Kenya irawo. Bara suayo omoniala bara suayo bara yentono. y el guara te más tranquilo. A congolaro, a la roya, a congolaro, el guara, a congolaro, a la guara, a congolaro, el guara. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. That's all for tonight. No. It is a genuine pleasure to be here. I came here Sunday in the very AM to meet with my very dear friend Matt Henry, who was the one responsible for bringing me here, and meet with this group of musicians, play my compositions, and do this event. It's fantastic. So my name is Andres Espinoza. I typically live in Florida, but I'm visiting here. What a wonderful city you guys have. You guys should feel proud of a venue like this, and I'm sure you do, because I'm jealous. I would like to have this in my community. Wonderful musicians. We heard from Ben Thompson over there on piano. Please give it up. We have Colin Trussell here behind me on bass. Brian May on drums. Ben Rees on tenor sax, and also what I call the agony stick, the soprano sax. Don Weber on trumpet. And my very dear friend Matt Henry on percussion. So this is a lecture concert. So aside from playing music, I also teach music, and I teach something very specific, which is actually how to talk and how to write about music. I'm a professor of musicology in Florida, and my specialty being Latin music. But I also teach all other kinds of music. But the thing that came of age with my own musical career was the point when I arrived to the States about 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago. And before entering the United States, I did not know that I was a Latino. I had no idea. And all of a sudden I entered the United States. You are a Latino. I am? Oh, that was news to me. And I also happened at the same time to discover that every single chart that I was going to play had this mysterious thing on the top left that said Latin. I didn't know that I was a Latino, and I didn't know there was such a thing called Latin music. So, I say, okay, I know about 400 different Latin rhythms. Which one do you want? The Latin one. So that led throughout my career to start, not fighting per se, but sort of changing the narrative of how we approach Latin jazz. Because there is, with Matt, we've been doing clinics and things throughout the last couple of days, talking about this. And the example that Matt gives is when we talk about music from the United States, we talk about country, we talk about pop, we talk about funk, we talk about jazz. We don't talk about American. When you see a chart, it doesn't say American. It says jazz, it says funk, it says pop. And by the same token, the reason why we don't do that with quote unquote Latin music is because we don't know. So I have made it part of what I do is to write music in the style and be extremely specific. This is what I want, this is what it's played, these are the sources. And part of that also includes me going to places like this and talking with the cats and saying, I want this, you want to play this goes with this, etc. So the first piece that we played, it's called Rojo y Negro, Ayer. And Rojo y Negro, of course, means red and black, okay? And in my life, throughout my years, I was born in Chile, but I spent a significant amount of years in Cuba. And in Cuba, what we have is a confluence of African people in the Caribbean, like almost nowhere else in the Caribbean. The only one that can rival that amount of music in the same place is Haiti. But in terms of Cuba, which is the one where I went, what I discovered when I was there was something called Santeria, that I knew it existed, but I hadn't really gotten myself into it. And the reason why I got myself into it was because of the music. The music of Santeria is outstanding. Matt over here, since we've become friends, he's gone to Cuba as well. I sent him to study with my family, and you can ask him about his experience with them, but it's a very, very deep, very, very seated and very, very foundation-centric music that is sacred music, and it has a level of canon that can rival the level of canon of any of the great Western artists. I mean, the amount of music can last easy for a week. Yeah. And the level of knowledge is incredible. So I have dedicated my life, a lot of my life, to studying that music. But at the same time, I grew up listening to jazz. My dad is a jazz fan. I grew up listening to jazz. And the two things were separated until at one point the two things started to get closer and closer together. And I started to try to figure out how to get the two of them together, because on the one hand, I love John Coltrane, and on the other hand, I loved African music. And at one point, I had the epiphany. I don't know how I didn't know this before. They're both African music. So, I hadn't really thought of it that way. So it's like, why am I doing this here and not both of them? So I started to utilize that idea and started to write music with that in mind. So what we're utilizing in our first tune, which is called Rojo y Negro, it's dedicated to one of the people of the pantheon, of the Yoruba pantheon, the Yoruba religious pantheon. It's dedicated to a deity called Elegua. And Elegua is the owner of the crossroads and the owner of the doors. It's very interesting also because St. Louis is at the crossroads of many places, so it's very, very fitting. But the idea is that Elegua is the one that owns the crossroads and is the one that opens the doors and closes the doors. So you always have to play first for him. Because if you don't play for him, the door will never open. So we can come here, I don't play for Elegua, then the rest of the concert won't be good. Because Elegua will make sure, no, you will make a lot of mistakes tonight. So I started writing that music, and we started by utilizing a rhythm which we call bembe. And we want to demonstrate a little bit of the bembe, but so you get the idea. We have a bell pattern, which is called, by the way, that's called a bell, not a cowbell, because there's no cow to attach to it. But the pattern that we play is this. And then the traditional way of doing this, kila, 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 kila. This is the most traditional way of doing it. So I started here, and I started adding elements of jazz on top of it. Can we play the ostinato at, I think, C? Do, do, bo, bong. Okay? So that's the rhythm that I took, because typically what we do is we sing for Elegua over that rhythm. And you notice that in the first piece, I also did a lot of recitation. All of that recitation are salutes to Elegua, traditionally sung in the Yoruba ceremonies. They're traditionally sung, and what I'm doing is saluting, say, we're here, we are hoping everybody here made it well, we are here to provide you with this experience that is not only musical, but also part of a spiritual in certain ways, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that comes to a confluence in that piece. And it's called Rojo y Negro, which means red and black. I know I've said Rojo y Negro like 5 times already, but it's called Rojo y Negro, red and black, because Elegua always dresses in red and black. Okay, so those are his colors. Every single deity in the Orisha Pantheon has their own colors. Tonight I'm dressed like Obatala. Obatala wears white, etc. So there are many, many combinations. And we play that piece, and I developed it in the language of jazz, utilizing, of course, modern harmonies, etc. The piece that we played right after is, some of you might have recognized it, is, of course, John Coltrane's piece, Resolution, from A Love Supreme, Part 2. For the same reason, but on the reverse, because I loved John Coltrane. Hearing A Love Supreme for me was a life-changing experience. When I really, really started listening to that record and got into it, and I still do. Whenever I need to fulfill my own soul, I actually go and listen to all of A Love Supreme in a quiet room from top to bottom. And in doing that, I'm discovering that jazz and the music that I had studied for so long were one and could be one and the same. I decided to take a piece of John Coltrane as an exercise and turn it into a Latin music that sounded somewhat different than the original. And that's how I ended up with that piece, Resolution. We played it on the style of some Montuno, cha-cha-cha, something like that. Can we play that a little bit? Just the main vamp. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just vamp on the D minor. So that's the rhythm that we utilize. Typically, that rhythm is called cha-cha-cha. Okay. For some reason, just like I left having a nationality and arriving to the United States having an ethnicity, in the same way, cha-cha-cha, by the way, notice I'm saying cha-cha-cha, changed its name when they arrived to the States. It used to be the cha-cha-cha, but apparently there was too many chas. So when it came to the States, it became the cha-cha. I like cha-cha-cha better. Anyway, we're gonna play another piece now. And about halfway through, we're going to leave about 5 minutes because it's a lecture for a couple of Q&A. So if you have any questions that are pressing in your mind, feel free to answer. Feel free to ask them and answer them if you want to. Just know that the answer is 42. Thank you to those that got the joke. Within again, the idea of jazz and Latin music, another person that played an enormous role in the development of Latin music in this country was, of course, Duke Ellington. Okay, I studied jazz composition in Berkeley in Boston, and I knew that Duke Ellington was important. I didn't realize how important. And I started listening more and more to Duke Ellington, and of course I ran into probably the most famous composition that he played, although it wasn't his composition, but he was the one that popularized it. And the name of the tune is Caravan, okay? It was, the tune Caravan, although it was popularized by Duke Ellington, was actually written by one of the trombonists of his band, who was Puerto Rican, named Juan Tisol. So, Caravan by Juan Tisol. Ben Thompson on the piano, Don Weber on trumpet. So what we did with that, we did at something that is called Rumba. Matt and I, friends for a number of years, and we always are talking with each other about things that we do with percussion because we study with the same people and we study the same kinds of concepts, and we agree very much in how to interpret them. So if you notice Matt and myself looking at each other every 30 seconds or so that I go, and he goes, it's on purpose. It is part of the style that we played Caravan in. It's called rumba. Okay, rumba is a large complex of Cuban music that has three basic movements: jambu, guaguancó, and columbia. The style that we used, it's the second one we used in guaguancó, which is medium to fast tempo. And typically is from the maritime areas of Havana and Matanzas. It's a mixture because the lyrics typically are in Spanish, but it uses drums and vocals. And typically in Cuba, that signifies more African, more Yoruba language, or something like that, as opposed to Spanish. So it sits sort of in between. So it's very interesting. As a drummer, it is a blast to play. It is so much fun once you really get the hang of it, because we can create those conversations. Because when you see all these drums on stage, it is not gratuitous. Gratuitous. That's a hard one. Cha-cha. Cha-cha, yeah. It's not gratis. So what we're doing is there are several drum parts to the rhythm. So whenever we study, we create conversations between the two of us. And the other thing that you will notice is I have another drum here that doesn't look like the other three. And Matt also has a whole bunch of drums there that don't look like the other three. Typically, rumba is played with that drum that he has there that's called cajon. Cajon in Spanish means big box. That's all it means. A cajon also means drawer. That's typically what they're made of. You take a drawer and you flip it around, you have a drum. It's true. Just ask this guy over here. And also you will notice that I have this drum over here. This is the drum that arrived from Yoruba land, present-day Nigeria and Benin, to Cuba. This drum is called bata, okay? And this particular one is called iya. And it's the largest, it's a set of three drums, it's the largest of the three. I'm using it tonight for color because it brings out that folkloric flavor to it. You notice that it has that kind of business. Those bells actually are called shaworo. And Matt and myself also have studied a lot about these drums. So I include in my playing, even though I'm playing rumba, I include a lot of bata language, which as Matt has studied, I call him upon it. So for example, if I do, that's basically what we're playing off of. We have that basic groove and about 500 different variations inside of it, and rumba on top of it. So we're utilizing all of this as a mixture, largely because of the context. What we have to consider, and this is something, again, Matt and myself have been talking throughout this whole week to different students, is that we often get asked the question, is it correct to use this thing? Rhythm A, rhythm B, style C, style D. The answer is, it depends. Because it depends on the context. Right here, this is a Latin jazz night, so we can take this and utilize the musical elements, not foregoing all the sacred elements, but taking the musical elements while respecting all the consecrated elements and recontextualizing. So we're utilizing rhythms that are not typically in their context and utilizing the language of jazz to express another context and elevate the music as a whole. And that's certainly part of it. Aside from living in Cuba for many years, I was born in Chile, in South America. And in Chile, what we have is a large Peruvian community. It's the largest immigrant community to the country. And because of that, we actually have, first of all, we have the most amazing food in the world because Peruvian food is, bottom line, the best. Do yourself a favor and go eat Peruvian food. But aside from that, typically in the restaurants, they feature Peruvian music bands. So Peruvian music in Chile is quite popular. and you listen to it. And one of the things that they play is one of the traditional styles that they play is called festejo, which means to party or celebration. So I wrote a tune based on the rhythm of festejo, and this one features a pair of drums that we haven't played yet, which I'm gonna do this. So a pair of drums you might have seen, which is one here. Matt has one over there too. And this is another type of cajon, so it's another type of box. As you can see, a wooden box. Typically, these boxes were used for shipping. You know, like I said, rumba is from maritime areas, so these boxes were filled with stuff you put in ships, and then the dock workers toss them out, and once they're done with the boxes, they start playing them. Interesting enough, the Peruvian version of the cajon came from the banning of instruments with skin in Peru in 18-something, I can't remember exact date. But the drums with the skin, such as this, were banned. So what did Afro-Peruvian people do? They took whatever they can get and make music. What did they have? Boxes. And we have this instrument, which is, of course, the Peruvian version of the cajon. This one has some snares to it, which is the more modern version, which is mostly used in flamenco music. But what we're gonna play right now is called Festejando, celebrating, and it's one of my compositions, and it's based on the rhythm of festejo. Work with me? Yes. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Q&A time. Do we have any questions? I think there was a mic circulating somewhere. Over there, Pops has it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Any questions, thoughts?
I have one.
Go for it.
What's the difference? You said rumba
I said rumba?
before,
Okay, cool.
among other things.
Among other things, yes.
What's rumba?
That's a really,
In the United States.
you see that a lot.
Spelled differently.
RHUMBA. Typically in Cuba, rumba is spelled RUMBA. The combination RH doesn't really exist in Spanish. It would be a very unusual combination, probably a foreign word, Spanishized. But just like cha-cha-cha and cha-cha, the rumba, when it came to the United States, it wasn't liked. So the rumba went back to Cuba. And then the music of son came to the States via Peanuts, of all things. Mm-hmm. You know that story, right? I know, it sounds funny. The reason why I say Peanuts is because you might know this tune. The first son tune that became popular in the United States, Cuban son, it's called The Peanut Vendor, El Manicero. Okay? You know it? No? Bum, boom, bum, fa, boom, boom, bum. Money. No? Never mind. I'm not that inspired today. So when it came here, it became a huge hit, largely because the song was super catchy, but also because of the presentation on the stage, because they had a guy wearing white who would go baseball stadium style, throwing bags of peanuts around to the audience. And he go, money, peanuts, selling peanuts, who wants peanuts? And that became very popular. However, the music, the name of the style is called son, S-O-N. In English, that doesn't work. Matt, do you have another musical name that we can throw in there to call it something else?
Son?
For son, because otherwise it's son in English. Do you have any other name for that?
Rumba.
How about rumba? Yeah. Don't we have a music called rumba?
Yeah, but we can call this rumba.
Even better. Let's spell it with an H.
Yes.
Awesome. So we have something called the rumba. Okay? If you go to ballroom dancing, and this is a part of the history of this country, ballroom dancing has popularized many styles in a very sanitized way, which has robbed them from their foundation, the foundation that they had, which is, part of history. And, what we're doing here, our mission is not necessarily shame anybody, but rather educate and say, there are all these things, we know that they exist, let's educate ourselves, and as my dear friend Matt was saying the other day, so that we can actually flex from knowledge and not flex from ignorance. I ask, now we have mics, you can drop one. I thought that was beautiful, honestly, because it's very, very true. It makes for a lot of the issues that we have, at least in terms of music, and you can extrapolate this, but I'm not going to go there. But in terms of the music, it makes a lot of sense that the way that people have been thinking of it is that because they have knowledge of other music, they know all musics, and that's problematic. Like I said before, I'm a great admirer of John Coltrane, for example, and there is something in music analysis that we call the Coltrane changes. I'm sure Pops is familiar with them. And I've been told many times that Coltrane changes already existed by Ravel. And I'm like, but why would we use Ravel to analyze Coltrane? Why don't we use Coltrane to analyze Coltrane? And the same thing happens. Why don't we use Cuban frameworks to analyze Cuban music and Peruvian systems to analyze Peruvian music, etc.? So it becomes more and more obvious as I have gotten deeper into the music, that the anthropological part of it and the cultural aspect of it, it wasn't a separate thing, ever. In Cuba, when you go to rumbas, not rumbas, but rumbas, you find always drummers, singers, and dancers. They're never separate. If one of them is missing, there's no rumba. You don't have to have drums. You can do it on the floor. You want to start a rumba on the floor? You don't need that. However, you don't need these drums to do rumba. However, what we don't have dancers.
Yeah.
Hmm? So it is out of context.
Brian.
Well, Brian, would you like to do us the honor? I lost my train. Oh, I'm having fun. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. I'm having a lot of fun tonight.
Question here.
Awesome.
Are you from a musical family, and at what age did you know music was going to be your career?
Am I from a musical family? My dad is not a professional musician, but he plays guitar, sings, plays a little bit of saxophone. You know, as a side thing, he's a professor of sociology, as a matter of fact. Well, he retired recently, but he always loved music, particularly listening to music. And every time he traveled, because he liked music and I liked music, and that was our thing that we had, he would bring me instruments from wherever he traveled. Like he would go to Brazil and he would bring me a drum, or he would go to Peru and he brought a cajon, or whatever. So I started playing that, and when I was 7 years old, he was playing in a band, and I would go to all the rehearsals, you know, because I was with my dad, and that's what you do. He wouldn't leave me alone in the house. So we would go to rehearsals, and in those rehearsals, you know, I just would sit next to the drummer and, you know, just sit there. And one of those days, I was about 8 years old, there was a gig, and the drummer didn't show up. Play. Okay. I was about 8 years old, and since then I've been playing, much to the dismay of my parents, but that's what I've been doing. And I'm not sure at what point it became so obvious that it was undeniable. I mean, I tried to not do music for a while because the living is very complicated, but I just kept ending back and going and playing and meeting people, interesting people, and wanting to learn more. And I was like, okay, there's no way. I'm simply avoiding it.
You guys are great.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you have another question there?
Okay, so is rumba a traditional Cuban rhythm, or is it a rhythm that's influenced?
Rumba in particular is created in Cuba. It's called a Creole rhythm. Okay, it's a criollo really. Not Creole is the English version of criollo, because it contains from the percussion point of view, it contains all the African aesthetics. But from the lyrical point of view, it's not an African language. It's in Spanish. So that's where the differentiation. When you talk about sacred music of the Bata, for example, all the lyrics are in Yoruba. You know, when you talk of the music of the Bantu in Cuba, all the lyrics are in Kikongo, etc. You know, so, but when you talk about rumba, it's always in Spanish. So that's where the differentiation comes in. Yeah.
I have two, if it's okay. The first is, do you have any percussionists in particular that have inspired you? The second is, do you play other instruments when you compose? What instruments do you use? How do you compose?
Can you repeat the question so everyone can hear it too?
Yeah, I'll repeat it. Yeah.
Andres, you.
Percussionists that inspired me, that was the first question, all of them. You know, I listen to a lot of music that doesn't have percussion per se as well, and I learn a lot about them. I mean, big part of my frustration as an instrumentalist that plays this instrument is that this instrument is not accepted in academia as a main instrument. So it was always very complicated for me to do that. So part of my work with this drum has been to move it forward so that it's not only has the supporting parts, but rather it can function as the same way that somebody like Jaco Pastorius did for the bass or something like that. Not that I'm putting myself in that position, please don't mistake that. But in that same concept, in moving forward what the instrument can do, what we think of the instrument. So in that sense, of course, the typical ones are the ones that we all people who play congas love and adore, Giovanni Hidalgo, Miguel Angá, et cetera, et cetera. But much beyond those, what I like are people who actually nobody knows, because they are my family that I go study with them in Cuba, and they live in the most humble house, and what they do all day and they have done all their life is play drums. And you know, they are known around their neighborhood. That's about it. And they are, you know, I go to them. and me, who am in this side of the world, I'm highly respected, invited to Jazz St. Louis and all those beautiful things, and I'm professor such and tenure and blah, blah, blah. But I go there to these people who are, quote unquote, uneducated musicians to learn. So there is, they're not in the scene at all, but they have such a profound, that was the thing for me as I was learning more and more about music in Cuba, the bigger and bigger that it got. At one point, it completely humbled me. I was like young 20s. I was like, I know everything about Cuban music. And I said, no, you don't. I was like, oh, okay, I don't. And in terms of do I play any other instrument? Yes, I play several other instruments, none of them well. I don't know if that serves. I play a little bit of piano. What happens is that I understand a lot of harmony. I study composition. So every time that somebody asks me that question, because they're always surprised that I play drums and I compose, is yes, I do play piano, but don't call me for a gig. If we do it ballad tempo, maybe I can get away with it. All right.
No, that was it. That was well done.
Yes, the other question is whether I played any other instruments besides drums when I compose. Sorry, I didn't repeat that. All right, let's move on because we have some more music and we got about 20 minutes left here. So I learned, I think the day I arrived here, that recently, of course, Chucho Valdés and Paquito de Rivera were here. They were amazing. And I know they're amazing and I know they're fantastic. I love them dearly, but I didn't want to be the person that played after them. So anyway, but I am. So, of course, I played my music alongside the music of some of the people that I admire. I'm, of course, a big admirer of Chucho Valdés. So we're going to play one of his compositions. Typically, I don't like to play compositions that are overplayed, and this one is overplayed. But I always, when we play those types of music, I like to make them a little different than what is expected. So officially, this is called Mambo Influenciado, okay? You might know the tune. Tonight is gonna be Mambo with the flu.
Mambo influenza.
Mambo and influenza. As you can see, we have a slightly different setup because I wanted this to be a little different than the rest of the concert. Ben Thompson on the piano, thank you very much. Colin Trussell on bass. Matt Henry on clave. All right, we're gonna play another piece that I wrote. This is called The Playground. This is another one of the music that I really, really like, aside from Latin music, but that also falls often under the umbrella of Latin music, is flamenco music. So I wrote a piece many, many years ago. I was looking through my pieces when I was putting together this concert, and I wrote this piece in 2006, and I was like, yikes, that was a long time ago. But this is called The Playground. It also is going to feature the cajon, and as I call it over there, the agony stick.
And rumba flamenca.
And yes, and thank you, Matt. The style is rumba flamenca, so not rumba from Cuba. This is an interesting one. The rumba flamenca, it's called toque de ida y vuelta or palo de ida y vuelta, which is a style of round trip style, because it starts in Cuba, and I'm sorry, it starts, flamenco starts in Spain, goes to Cuba, gives big impulse to rumba music in Cuba, and then from Cuba, recordings of rumba go back to Spain, and in Spain they reinterpret the music and start calling rumba flamenca. So this is The Playground, rumba flamenca. One, two. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much, everybody. All right, we have our last tune of the night. Okay? So if you didn't have fun and you didn't move your body, it wasn't our fault. Thank you so much, Pops. Thank you for helping, bringing me here. It's been a pleasure. Give it up for this fantastic band. They're doing an amazing, amazing job. I'm well aware that my music is not simple, and they are doing a beautiful job. I met, except for Matt, I think I met everybody for the first time on Sunday. So it's been a pleasure to work with. And for the second time today, although I saw Don in the middle of it at some point in a rehearsal of some sort. And Brian too, yes. But the fact of the matter is that to play my music, I require a very high level of musicianship, and they are most definitely living up to it. And I'm very, very honored and proud to have them play my music. So thank you, everybody. Ben Thompson, Colin Truesdell, Brian May, Matt Henry, Don Weber, Ben Reese. Thank you, Ryan on the sound. Thank you very much. And there's a streaming. I forget his name. What was his name in streaming?
Who's streaming?
Yeah, who was taking charge of streaming? Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paul. And thank you, everybody, for having me here. This tune, this is our last tune. This is called Tea Time Descarga. And of course, every tune that I have has some kind of story. I did my master's in England, in the city of York, of all places. Yeah, I know, a medieval city, because that's the place you go to learn about Latin music, a medieval city in England. It's called full scholarship. You don't say no to those. Anyway, this is called Tea Time Descarga, because I was in England, and tea time is a thing, and I didn't realize it was a thing. But they kept offering me with the tea, they kept offering me things with jam. I don't like sweets. They kept offering things with jam. And I came up with this idea of tea time jam. And in Spanish, descarga means jam. So this is the jam that we do at tea time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you all so much for coming to the Bistro tonight, Jazz St. Louis. Thank you for coming to our Whitaker Jazz Series. This is the Latin Jazz, featuring Dr. Andreas Espinoza, with Matt Henry's Agbara.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Give them all a hand. Thank you all for coming out. Please visit us again.
For those interested, I'm gonna say, because I forgot to say this, I'm also an author. I have a few copies of my books if you're interested in learning about history of salsa and the political discourse of salsa. Feel free to buy my book. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Drive safely.
Have a great night.
It's so easy to miss little things like that, like where it's just like, oh my god, oh shit. Wait, okay, it's never right. Yes, I just.